Hey dreamers, my guest today is making her dreams come true by not allowing cerebral palsy to stop her from achieving her goals. She's a best-selling author, and she just is a really inspirational person. Dreamers, today I bring you Wynne Charles. Welcome to the show, Wynne.
Thank you for having me on. And I was honored enough to have you on my podcast, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, it came out. Well, at this point, it was a couple months ago, but
It
it was an honor to be a guest.
Yes, which we'll get to why I started that in a minute.
Yes, we definitely will. Well, Wynne, why don't you get started now by giving some background about yourself?
Sure, I wrote my first autobiography at the age of 23. I, Wynne, W-I-N, and yes, that is my legal name. That is how you spell it. And so I wrote that book as a form of grief therapy after having my life turned upside down, which I fully admit why in my autobiography, which I wrote at age 23. And then I continued on the writing journey, all based around cerebral palsy. But after my original autobiography came out, people were asking me, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you write books? How do you run this amazing life/company, all with a physical disability that means cerebral palsy? And so I thought, okay, if I turn on this podcasting mic one more time and tell people that I have cerebral palsy, people are going to turn me off. Well, fast forward to August, fast back to August 2010, when my mother was dying in a hospital bed. She told me telepathically, yes, you can write the book, and yes, something would have to do with wisdom. Well, 60 years later, I didn't know what the heck wisdom was going to turn out to. It turned into a podcast with over 18,000 downloads, and I love doing it.
I love podcasting, and because it's such a powerful medium, it's just your voice in their ears, and it doesn't seem like a lot of things, but what I point out to like my students that I've taught podcasting and media and digital content creation to is, it's like how everybody raise their hands, like, all right, how many people have watched the YouTube video? And everybody raise their hand. Like, okay, now how many people have watched the YouTube video where it's the only tab open in their browser? And pretty much every hand goes down. And it was like, that's the difference between podcasting and having video. Video is powerful, but it in many cases, it's not the only thing open and pulling attention at the time.
I think I'm going to have to use that line, Joe, because people don't understand the power of podcasting. They don't understand that you can sell things on a podcast. They understand the power of video for marketing, but they don't understand the power of podcasting for marketing as well.
Yeah. And sometimes it's tough for people to understand. I mean, especially if they've never even heard of the word podcast before, to have to understand that it's internet radio. It's like Netflix, but for audio.
Yes.
For talk shows. So it's definitely tough for people to comprehend, but more and more people are coming around. More and more people are understanding and hearing the word and taking it in. And I love it. That's why I keep doing it. So I'm glad that you found podcasting and have fallen in love with it, as much as your listeners seem to have fallen in love with it and continue to listen and support you through that medium.
Somehow I must be doing something right, and I acquired a co-host in June. He does a deeper dive than I do. And so if you hear a strong male voice on my podcast on the occasion, every single time we do a podcast, he tries to show up and do a deep dive with my interviewees. And so we make a good combination.
It's great to have a great co-host. I've done shows with the co-host before, and when you have that dynamic, it really helps. Drive the creativity and the imagination of the listener, and as well as questions too, because your co-host might think of questions coming from a different background than you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So that's why I highly recommend you guys get a co-host when not necessarily when you're starting out, but it's hard to do a solo show, as Joe will tell you, and as I will tell you. For many months, I was doing Butterflies of Wisdom on my own, and I got sick and tired of it because I couldn't take a drink of water in the middle of it. I couldn't have a coughing attack. I have now trained myself not to cough on the podcast.
No, I feel you on that. That's why I bought a hardwired mute button so that I can mute my mic on demand without like clicking a key or anything like that. And because I have a baby, so and she's here, so it's important to be able to turn off the mic in between talking. So how long have you been doing Butterflies of Wisdom?
I have been doing Butterflies of Wisdom. Well, Butterflies of Wisdom started out as a YouTube show, and then I went to Blog Talk Radio. The reason why I did it on YouTube first was mainly for the SEO, and I got good SEO on that. And for those of you who don't know what I mean Google got my YouTube show and practically pushed it to number one. But then I had a fan, and she knows this story, say to me, I want to listen to a show of Winds Women of Wisdom at the time, but I can't because I am multitasking on airplane or multitasking every 2 seconds, and I can't download the audio from YouTube. So then I'm like, well, this has got to change. And so then I tried Blog Talk Radio. Well, Blog Talk Radio was a complete disaster. I would log in to that studio, and the day I couldn't get the guest in, I tried on Blog Talk Radio and said, that's it. That's it. I'm going over to iTunes come heck or high water. And then I stumbled across, I asked my fan base, I said, those of you who are into podcasting, what's the best podcasting host other than Blog Talk Radio? And 4 people told me Libsyn, Lybsyn. And for a while there, I was hesitant. Finally, I took the plunge. I paid the $30 a month. And do you know what? Libsyn has never gone down on me. My conference call line has, but Libsyn has never gone down on me. Libsyn is the strongest podcast host I have ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, Libsyn does a great job. I mean, there's like only 3 or 4 that are really like the top of that are really focused on podcasting in general. And then to my knowledge is Blueberry, Libsyn, and Spreaker. Oh, well, there's Podbean as well too.
Yes, there's Podbean as well. But what I would recommend to your listeners, for those who are just tuning in to the Dreamers podcast and want to start a podcast, I would recommend they go with a strong podcast host, because most sites are going to kick you off if you upload too much audio to a site.
I would agree. Yeah, unless you have a certain, it's like I host mine from my own website, but yeah, it depends on A, how many downloads you're getting, and then B, how much how like it depends on who your host really is. It comes down to, because like some hosts don't give unlimited data, or they say unlimited, but it doesn't really mean unlimited.
Yeah.
In fact, I
No.
just had a conversation while we're on the topic. I just had a conversation with my stream host, and they told me that I'm doing about 11.5 gigabytes a day in traffic between my podcast and my website, which I was blown away by.
Yowza.
And they don't. I don't pay anything extra for that. I mean, I think maybe my site might run a little bit slower than it probably should, but for the most part, it doesn't crash or like time out or anything. So for now, I'm still comfortable with we're rolling that way.
You're still comfortable with it. You're still comfortable with it. Most podcasters host on Libsyn or Blueberry. Libsyn and Blueberry are one of the top ones out there, the top two actually out there. But you can host on your own website. Just as I said, they might get a little bit sketchy just because you're hosting a heck of a lot of audio files on your own website, and most websites don't have the capabilities to support that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like Bluehost doesn't even let you upload MP3 files.
Yeah,
they just don't let you do it. So, now, what were some of the first steps that you took once you decided you were going to make that transition to doing podcasting from YouTube?
First of all, looking back on it now, I should have told my fans, when you make a big difference and have a fan following like I did from my book, I should have told my fans this is what's going on, and that's why I was so transparent on Blog Talk Radio. I said, look, this is what's going on. You guys now want this podcast. You now built up a following. I was getting over 1,000 downloads on Blog Talk Radio of Wins Women of Wisdom at the time. And so the archives are still around to you guys, even though it's now transferred over to Butterflies of Wisdom. But I wish I was more transparent with my fans when the original change happened, so that my fans would still have followed me wherever I went.
What sparked the name change?
The name, Wins Women of Wisdom was primarily for women at the time, and then men started listening to it, and men kind of said, I want to be interviewed, because men on the occasion have solo entrepreneurships, and that's why I started this, and then it turned into disabilities aspects, or podcasting aspects, or education aspects, or fashion aspects, or assistive technology and assistive technology. So that's what sparks the name change big time, because I started out as Wins Women of Wisdom on Libsyn, and that is still my show URL, but men got involved, so I kind of had to change it to something a little bit more neutral, because when I was sending out may I interview these request forms, people were saying, I am not a woman. Are you sure you want to interview me? Are you sure I am a credible story? And sometimes on the occasion I will get, I don't have a credible story, and of course I'm like, of course you do. We can pull in credible stories out of anyone. I just interviewed a woman this morning And I know when you guys listen to the recording of this one, I know when it comes out on Tuesday, this episode will be already out on my feed, Butterflies of Wisdom. But I just interviewed a woman this morning who is running the New York City Marathon in honor of her uncle who had a liver transplant, and she's running with a team called the Chris Krug Foundation. And Chris Krug is actually a friend of mine. He's actually a U.S. Olympic medalist. He won a medal 18 months after surviving a liver transplant.
Wow. 18 months. I mean, that's
Yeah,
seems
18 months.
wow. And not just to do something like, oh, I ran a